Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Here.
Director Messick.
Here.
Director Matthews. Director Bishop.
Here. Great, thank you. Next is Pledge of Allegiance. Director Blazer, will you lead, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mandy. Next is public comment.
Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Board of Directors on any subject matter that is not on the meeting agenda and is within the board subject matter jurisdiction. Public comment periods are limited to 3 minutes per person, and the total amount of time for public comments is 15 minutes. Persons participating by way of a video conference or teleconference shall ensure their audio is muted at all times, except when the board chair announces public comment periods. At those designated times, members of the public wishing to speak shall enable their audio and state their name for the record. When multiple members of the public wish to speak, the clerk will determine the order of speakers and announce their names accordingly. To ensure proper conduct, the board reserves the right to mute the audio and video of any member of the public violating generally accepted principles and decorum of official public meetings. There's no online public comment.
Okay, is there any public comment in the room? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. There's 2 items on the consent agenda. Are there any? Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I have one thing on the minutes. It looked to me like there's an extra vote at the bottom of after the discussion item we had. It doesn't belong there. And I didn't print it off to bring with me. But
do you? That's something we can get corrected.
We can check that before we post it.
Okay. So would the motion then be to approve the minutes with that correction?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Any additional comments? Any public comment? Okay.
I apologize. The motion was Director Vasquez and the second was Director Matthews.
I think so. I think it was a tie. We'll give it to Matthews, I guess. Sorry, Seth.
That's fine.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next up is discussion items. Receive an overview of agency administration functions. Morning, Terry.
I am really excited to be the only discussion item on the agenda today, and I know you're going to love seeing our 472 slides. Okay, I'm just kidding. So today, so you've probably noticed that over the past few board meetings, what we've been bringing to you are presentations about our operations. And you've probably noticed that our operations, for the most part, are aligned with the strategic plan, with your strategic plan. So if you recall, you heard from Ryan McNally about strategic priority 1, which is about flood risk reduction. You also heard from Ryan about water supply because Ryan is the director of flood risk reduction and water supply. Water supply is number 2, strategic priority number 2. At the last board meeting, you heard from Phil and his team of managers on power systems, and that's strategic priority number 3. Strategic priority number 4, and Phil is our director of power systems. Strategic priority number 4 is about resource planning, and we have a special meeting on May 30th. That's pretty extensive, and John James, the director of resource planning, is going to be talking about FERC license, fisheries, our environmental efforts, and also about the Accord. And so we thought we have it as a separate meeting so that you can really ask questions because it's so central to the agency operations. So today you're going to hear, we have lots of action shots for you for administrative services. Okay, we have a couple action shots. So I know administrative services sounds so boring, but it's actually really exciting because I always look at it as kind of the heart of the operation, or maybe the structure, the base level, that hopefully our goal is to keep everything running efficiently and effectively. So strategic priority number 5 is what we're talking about today. And you will hear from several, there are actually 8 different objectives. Strategic priority 5 in the strategic plan, to further develop Yuba-Watter's organizational capabilities to efficiently support operations. So we're not going to torture you by going into depth on all 8 of them, but we wanted to give you an idea of how we operate. And mostly that we in the agency, your staff, we are really keenly aware that the more efficient we can be in these operations helps the rest of the organization be efficient. And the more efficient we are and the more effective we are in delivering the results, the more money we have in reserve for you to invest in the community. And so we're really very, very careful and always looking at how could we do this better? How could we do this more efficiently? So in strategic priority 5, there are 8 objectives. The first one is about safety. I've got the first 2 right here for you. The objective number 1 is safety and compliance. And in the admin services, we support the efforts of everyone in safety, important enough that we actually list it as a separate objective. So you heard last week from Avi Sandher, who is our manager of compliance. And so she really wrangles everything up at the plant in compliance and safety. And our safety officer, who is up at the plant, actually handles safety for the whole organization. And so we support his efforts and make sure everything's safe always and in compliance. The second objective is about finance. So who you're going to be hearing from today is our Director of Finance, and that's Curtis Crawford. That's objective number 2. And I'm introducing them all up front, so when they come up, you'll know who you're hearing from. Objective number 3 is about human resources and our staff, and that's Teresa Della Santa. She'll be talking about that. She is our HR manager. You're going to be hearing from Jim Matrician. He is our clerk of the board and management analyst, and he's going to be talking about the clerk of the board function, but also about policies and systems and procedures that go along with that. David DeVore, our information systems manager, will be talking about IT, and Alex Bosch will be talking about communications. The other 2 objectives in this strategic priority, number 7 is about industry associations, and you're probably thinking to yourself, what? We need an objective on industry associations? We do. And that's to be really transparent to the public that, yes, we're involved in industry associations. And it's not so that people could go to exciting places where conferences are held, like Bakersfield and Fresno and, Monterey. It's because being a part of industry associations helps us learn, right? We get better because we get to interact with, just like when you go to the Aqua Conference, you learn a lot more about the water world. And we want that in the strategic plan so that the public can see, yes, you think that's important for us to do that. So you're not going to be hearing a whole lot of slides or seeing a lot of slides on that one. I just wanted to tell you about the objective number 7. And number 8 is about regulatory and legislative efforts. And you heard from Adam Robin a few weeks ago about his efforts in doing that. So you're going to be hearing from a few of us today on these objectives. And the first person is Curtis Crawford talking about finance.
Morning, Curtis.
Good morning. So I'm going to start here with an org chart. I needed some sort of chart or graph in my presentation. I wouldn't know what to do. So an org chart is going to fill that role today. I'll spend most of my time on this slide because it really is the people that make the finance division go. In the finance division, there's 5 functional areas. The first one is accounting. We have procurement and contracts. We have settlements. We have business systems administration. And then we have our actual administrative support staff. So I'm going to highlight those folks and talk a little bit about what they do. Talk a little bit about the tasks that they do, but really spend more time on the philosophy and the mindset that we try to instill when they're going about those tasks to make it a little more meaningful than just processing invoices and writing contracts, but the reason behind the finance role here in the organization. So we'll start with these 3 individuals here in the middle. Those are our procurement team: Andrea Osterholt, Vicki Anderson, Angela Ferrer. They do a ton of work in contracts and task orders, partnering with the different project managers that we have across the organization. Vicki focuses mainly on the power systems managers, which you heard 2 weeks ago, all the projects that they're working on. Angela is more water resources and flood risk reduction projects down here in the valley. They spend a lot of time sourcing new vendors as we've brought in talent. They have folks that they used to work with. We're embarking in different areas and different projects than we ever have before. So there's a lot of work to find the best partners and establish contracts with those partners. And understanding the work that our project managers in those different mission areas are working on so they can stay ahead of what they need, anticipate needs, and really partner with those folks to help get the work done. Because as Terry's mentioned, we're really the support function. So it's understanding what are the rest of our folks challenged with. How do we stay prepared and help support them? We'll move on to just left of our procurement folks. We have Maury Miller and Andy Richmond. They're representing our settlements function. That's reconciling the CAISO activity. It's executing RA agreements, resource adequacy agreements, and carbon-free agreements. They've been busy this year, that's for sure. Reconciling the power system revenue. One thing they'll be taking on in the future, now that we have the new agreement with Shell, is we'll be proactively marketing some RA carbon-free and renewable energy credits. So that's going to be a new thing that they take on. So we'll be diving much more into risk management. Credit risk is going to be a brand new thing that we're going to be taking on. We're going to be doing our own due diligence, kind of getting our feet wet in that realm. So they'll definitely be busy well off into the future. I'm going to jump over to 3 that are not here in a column, but we have Vanjie Bushnell, Terry Peterson, Kimberly Knight. They represent our admin support. They're supporting some of the procurement processes, some data entry to help get that process kickstarted. Anything the management team needs as far as coordinating meetings, and basically everything out of left field seems to land in their court. For example, you'll be happy to hear we're getting new furniture in the F Street conference room. So that's one of the projects that they took the lead on is finding a couple of vendors, getting some ideas, what kind of equipment works for us. So something completely out of left field. They didn't know that they were going to be working on that when they showed up in the morning, but that's kind of the role that they fill. It's kind of the jack of all trades. Not last, but next, the accounting team. We'll look at this column here. We have Jack Winship, David Yang, Abby Vegas, and Natalie Mikolewski. 92% sure I pronounced that right. That's the accounting team. They do the normal accounting functions, all the invoices. They're responsible for payroll, which they're processing as we speak. You're welcome. They're also working on all the financial statements, as you guys see in the ABP committee monthly, and then on the consent agenda also monthly. And then they're really diving into reporting. And reporting is kind of a segue where I'm going to talk about. That's all the task stuff so far that we've talked about, but really the why the finance is here and how finance really helps the organization. Reporting is getting the information back into the manager so they can make the best decisions possible. For the last few years, as you guys know, a few years ago, we implemented a new ERP system. We've had different modules where we've enhanced that ERP system. It's been a matter of data collection. And now we've got a few years under our belt, we're able to deploy that data back out into the managers and kind of shed some light on their activities so they can make the best management decisions, whether it be which project to take on when, or is there a staffing need, to try to put some data behind that. So we've really been focused on beefing up our reporting, not just the financial statements that you see. There's a report per line probably we can drill into further detail on all those statements. To do that, we have our last but not least functional area, and that's our business systems administration. That's Nicole Vandermeulen. Her role has really been the, I guess, kind of the liaison between business processes and needs and our information systems and technology. So those, what kind of infrastructure do we have? What equipment do we have? What software is out there to help support us? That role, working with finance, has really been the catalyst to capturing the right data, putting it in a way we can manipulate it into reports that's usable for the managers. And I think that's really leading to some better clarity internally on how the organization is performing and what we need. Something unique about particularly our procurement and accounting teams is as we go through the recruitment process, we're very open that this isn't your typical sit in a cube from 8 to 5 and process an invoice and you're numb to what's actually happening in the invoice. They're very focused on getting to know the work that's actually happening in the organization they work in. Everyone here on this page is committed and a part of the organization, not just numbly processing the transaction. So with the work that the business systems analyst has done, we've really been able to streamline and make those transactional things more efficient or even automated in a lot of cases. Some things that just aren't as hard as they used to be. So it gives them the time, the bandwidth to get out into the field and work with these project managers, understand the work, which makes them better prepared to stay ahead of what contract might be needed and what budget shift might be needed. I think that makes us a little unique in that regard, that we've been able to free up that time and we're deploying those folks in that way. For example, procurement team, not all of them are on the call because there's a meeting going on right now in the F Street conference room talking about the 5-year capital improvement plan for power systems. They're tagging along that meeting and they're jotting down notes for if they're going to embark on a project on X date, then they need to start their procurement process, 60, 90, 120 days before. So they're jotting down notes like that. And just a couple of weeks ago, we had accountants up at Colgate holding one-on-one budget discussions with engineers. So those are kind of examples of get up out of the cube and deploy them. I think it helps them gain satisfaction in their job and their role here in the agency as well. Moving right along, overarching projects. So budget and planning, that's kind of the obvious one. Reserve policy and management. This really is the planning, understanding what's coming, what big projects do we have, how do we best position ourselves so we're prepared to meet those obligations when they come. All under the umbrella, the reserves got a nice little umbrella picture, but under the umbrella of risk management. So we're going to do this within compliance, within the rules that we abide by, particularly on the procurement side. As you guys know, being a public entity, buying something might not be as easy as it sounds. That's one of the reasons they're in the capital improvement meeting right now is they'll have to partner with those project managers to navigate bid requirements and prevailing wage and all that kind of stuff. Really, the role here is that last one, is to maximize the value, exploring revenue opportunities, and then really monitoring and paying attention to the expenses. The more we can get out of our project, the further we can push on those other mission areas, being flood risk reduction, water supply, watershed resilience, habitat improvement projects. We want to free up as much of these resources towards pushing forward on those objectives, not just maintaining. We want to make sure that our operating expenses aren't escalating at a rapid rate to generate that free cash flow for things like the Community Impact Grant Program, that $10 million investment target. It's maintaining that ability, if not enhancing that ability. So it's running this organization efficiently, and that all comes with pulling back the curtain and getting that data out to the managers, like I mentioned before. A few recent accomplishments. That first one was really about just making things easier, as I talked about with business systems. The budget, even the audit and the monthly financials, that's not really it's not a time suck. It's not a resource suck for us. That's kind of second nature to us now, which is good. That's the way it should be. And then it affords us the opportunity to work on reports that don't exist yet and things that we haven't tackled. We're not wasting all of our time on that transactional stuff. Purchasing, maintenance, and timekeeping systems are examples of some of the software and processes that we've changed that have really led to this data collection. Maintenance is a huge one. We're going to start tapping into that. CMMS was implemented, I think, 2 years ago, so now we're building some history in there. It's really going to be quantifying what's our routine maintenance budget, what's our corrective maintenance budget, what do we expect our corrective maintenance budget to be, so those become indicators. If we start trending above it, we've got the opportunity to raise a red flag and initiate a conversation with the maintenance manager and identify, hey, Colgate Unit 2, this system, more corrective maintenance than we anticipated. Are you seeing that as well? And then that system will allow them to dive in and actually look at those corrective work orders and identify their patterns and in the weeds at their technical level. But gives finance the opportunity to be like a first kind of red flag of maybe there's something to explore here. There we go. Yeah, administering 13 incoming grants and 54 outgoing grants. That's our community impact grant program. That's the stuff that we're freed up to do because these basics, monthly financials and paying invoices isn't taking all of our time. We are not concerned about taking on more incoming grants. Those are wins. Those are other dollars that we can leverage to make forward progress on our other mission areas, and we're capable of taking that on. So I see that as definitely an accomplishment. So projects over the next 2 years, over the next 2 years, I didn't add that, so that's a short timeline. I'll try to hit the next 2 years though. Reserve policy update will be within the next couple of months. That one's been changing. There's more reserves to find homes for, but that process is to go through the designations in that reserve policy and make sure that they're still right-sized. As you know, there's a designation for operating reserves. What does it take to operate the agency for 1 year? Let's make sure that number is still accurate. The other thing that we need to accomplish in that reserve policy update is we've been working with S&P to get a practice credit rating in case we do need to go out and borrow to fund any large projects. Given the revenue year, we'll see how likely that is, but we wanted to be prepared. And it's been going really well. We are definitely unique in terms of what S&P has rated before. We don't have a simple take or pay power contract. We're actually participating in the market. That's a credit that they have not really evaluated yet nationwide. So there's been a lot of communication. Some of the feedback that we got, because we would just be bonding against power systems entity, not general fund, reserves policy would then need to be split. These are reserves for power systems, reserves for general fund. That's not the way we've operated to date. We've not had to. We haven't had a reason to really think about that proactively. So it's an example of good communication that we've had with S&P, just making sure that we are prepared to demonstrate that we are we're not a risky credit and achieve the best bond rating possible, because that's cheaper money. Making our money go further is what we're attempting to accomplish. That second bullet there I mentioned before, that settlements team, this is kind of a new area for us, and that's directly marketing RA carbon-free and renewable energy credits. We are working on establishing those policies and processes before we start negotiating with these bilateral agreements. Doing that due diligence ourselves and evaluating credit risk is relatively new to the team. It's definitely new to the agency. So more to come on that. You'll see that in the near future as well. That last one there is refining project management and budgeting processes, and it's sharing that ownership across the management team. Now that they're equipped with these tools, and really bringing them to the table and helping manage these projects. There's a lot more projects on the books today than there were just a couple of years ago, but we have the resources to get a lot of them done too. So it's working to plan that, so we line up those resources and projects, make sure that we're not overloading any particular staff member. Take that 5-year capital improvement plan, make it a 10-year capital improvement plan, really identify the resources it takes for each and every one of those projects on that plan. I think that's going to be a huge help, as we've got a lot of big things on the horizon. With that, Returning it back to Terry for the next 3 objectives.
Any questions from the board?
Who handles what? Richardson and Company? They use them at.
You used them for quite a while.
Yes, I think this is their 6th year. After their 5th year, they had to change partners, and we actually had some change in staff as well. We'll likely extend them for at least 1 more year. Ingrid was here, I think, last board meeting talking about that change in the financial statements we had to restate, so she can be the partner again next year. We're fairly satisfied. We'll likely do an RFP the following year, just to get a fresh set of eyes. We've really evolved over the last 6 years in terms of what we're presenting to the auditor. So it might be nice just to get a fresh look.
I believe you, by law, have to change partners after so many years. The Oxley thing. Could you go to the last slide for a minute, please? When you get to the bottom about project management, we put a lot of money out to different organizations, but we don't have a follow-up. And something to think about in the future is trying to identify somebody in our organization that's responsible for, use Ellis Lake as an example. We put money in different places into ideas of Ellis Lake. We haven't accomplished what we set out to do, but at the same time, we have put money out and we don't know if it was spent properly. And I think in the future, we might try to find some way that somebody in our agency is responsible for the different projects. And I'm saying different projects because we have different expertise. So we would assign someone with their expertise to look after it and be able to report back how the money is being spent and what's actually happened.
Director Matthews,
idea.
Are you referring primarily to our grant funding and making sure our grant funding is spent effectively, or we're getting what we invest in our grant funding primarily?
Yes.
Okay.
Observation.
It's one thing that we tossed around, and it might be worth resurrecting, is having another pod meeting. So there's one today to actually approve the grant applications, because we just had an application window close. But to have a standalone pod meeting that is just a status update of past projects, and whether it's one individual that is on staff responsible for it, or if we just have the program managers, as you'll hear from later today in the pod meeting, give status updates. It's something that we had talked about and didn't materialize, but it's worth resurrecting, so we'll take that away.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Oh, yes.
As the longest board member here, we've changed the number of employees from when I started to when it's happening now. The question is, how many employees do we actually have in the water agency? And I don't think the board has any type of perspective on how we've increased our efforts and responsibilities in the water industry. And I know I lost touch with going to the powerhouse for a meeting with the people up there, and I think it would be a benefit to start that again so that we could say thanks to all the people here, because of we set the operational standards in the industry, and we also set the maintenance standards in the industry. You look at what happened at Orville, and that will never happen at Bullards because of your efforts and your procedures. PG&E had run it till it breaks, and that's kind of that thought process. But I think I would appreciate it if we could get together and know how many people we had and had a chance to say thanks to those people, because without them and without their effectiveness, we wouldn't be where we are. California sooner or later has to recognize large hydro and nuclear to achieve the goals eliminating all fossil fuel by 2030. I think these guys been smoking their socks or something. It's just not possible to do. But as far as the projects, why don't we have an annual report on the completed projects that we have? Because when you really sit down and make a list of everything, it's pretty impressive. And you may think it's nothing, you just take it in stride. But I sat on a retirement ceremony at Lake Francis. And like I said, it's like that book, Among Giants, because you guys think it's an everyday occurrence, but most people would never do what you actually do. They may dream about it, but I'd like seeing better communications between the people that actually do the work and us. So that's just one man's opinion. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Any additional comments or questions from the board? Okay, great. Next, Terry.
That's a really good comment. All of the comments were good, but I was sitting there when Curtis was talking, and I thought, admin and finance is kind of like flood risk reduction. A lot goes into it, and if it's done really well, you never hear about it. There aren't any problems, and that's a lot like our organization in general. Hey, we just work, we just get things done, and bad things don't happen. And bad things could happen, but and when you'll hear from David DeVore in a little bit, it's like, we haven't been held captive and had to pay ransom on our system. We haven't. And so that's what I mean about when we're doing things well, you're not going to hear about us very often, but you're hearing about us today. So the next three objectives in strategic priority 5 are objective number 3 is about HR and striving to be the premier employer in the industry. Number 4, and that's Teresa De La Santa, she'll come up in just a few minutes. Objective number 4 is about structure and support tools and clerk of the board function. That's where this comes in, and Jim Attrition's going to be talking a little bit about that. And objective number 5 is about information systems. I asked David to put that map up that shows all the attacks going on, but man, there's so many going on. It's pretty amazing, but you'll hear more about that. You would. A couple quick comments. I'll show you the our org chart. I thought Jackie Silman would actually come through the Zoom screen and give a cheer when you asked Charlie and Andy, you asked for reports on the money, the grants, and the projects we've been working on. That's coming with strategic priority number 6. That's about community investment. And so we will bring back to you, I'm really hoping to bring back to you, since we came out from under PG&E, how much money have you invested in the community and different projects? And we are working, as Curtis said, in our grants program, we have program managers in every area. So in water supply projects, in flood risk reduction projects. So there are 6 of them. And Charlie, we will work on having those people really follow up on all those grants and make sure what happened. So thank you for the suggestion. This is the administration division org chart. I am the Director of Administrative Services under my AGM hat. You'll see the objectives I just alluded to. You see Jim is up there. He works with Mandy on those functions, Teresa, and they'll introduce all the folks that are in their departments. Teresa handles HR, and David DeVore has information systems. The 2 people that aren't talking today, or at least at the board meeting here, is Jackie Silman and Creighton Avila. Those folks primarily work on community investment projects. And under my hat of AGM, I'm also I also handle that area as well as community investment. So just to give you some overarching projects that all of us are working on, organizational structure and development. I'm sure Teresa will tell you exactly how many employees we have right now, but when I started here 8 years ago, it'll be 8 years. This is the third, on Thursday. I was hoping I'd stay 3 years when I started. 8 years from now, you can't get me to leave because I'm having so much fun doing this. But we had when I started, about 30, 35 people. Now we're, I think allocated, we're at 109, 110.5. The 0.5 transfers around to who's not feeling really well. I'm kidding. And so one of the things we've been working on in this organizational structure and development is really how do we be more efficient? One of the things we've when we had 30 employees, we used a lot of consultants, and that was a great model, up until 2016. The idea was really small skeleton staff, but you use a lot of contractors and consultants, right? And that was a more efficient, more cost-effective way to operate. Well, once we came out from under PG&E, we saw, it's not as cost effective because we're doing a lot more now. We're handling a lot more projects. And so right away we added, the control room. We had to have an operations staff. We added an engineering team. And so what we've been doing the past couple of years and are still doing is really looking at, okay, what are areas where we have great consultants, but there might be a benefit of having that knowledge and that experience internally. And so some of the staffing up that we've been doing over the past couple of years has really been transferring that work from consultants to staff. And it is more cost effective, and we have that knowledge in-house now. So we're going to continue working in that area. As Curtis mentioned, I work with Curtis on risk management functions. Facilities and fleet, this is a really good example of stuff so we staffed up and got things going at the plant, right? When we had 30 employees, 25 of them were up at the plant. The other 5 of us were in Marysville. And so a lot of functions developed up at the plant, like fleet services. We didn't have that many cars down here, and so fleet was just handled up there. And facilities, the same way. They handled facilities up at Colgate. And I don't know, it was usually Kurt or Scott Madiak who would kind of handle stuff for facilities. Well, in Marysville, things have changed now. And so we're trying to add just a little bit more structure to those functions. And so we're working on things like that. We're working on developing an agency-wide GIS system, working with Curtis on project management and to get more a little bit more structure and discipline, frankly, as we bring those projects in-house from consultants to be a little more consistent in how we approach them and how we plan for them and how we manage them. And organizational culture. This one is always important, and we always need to work on making sure that we are that employer of choice and that we do have that get her done, can do, we're going to deliver kind of culture. So those are the big projects we're working on. For more specifics, let me turn it over to the managers, and the first one is David DeVore.
Before you turn it over,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We've all been reading about artificial intelligence. Over the next 5 years, how is the artificial intelligence going to affect the 100 people we have? Were there any projections, or do you know enough about artificial intelligence at this point?
That's all yours. I can answer that. Hi, my name is David DeVore. I'm the Information Systems and Security Manager here at the Water Agency. To answer your question, it's to be determined at this point in time. There's a lot of variation out there in the different artificial intelligence models, And the way we would directly integrate it as far as the application, the use case for it within the agency is yet to be determined. There is an area of machine learning that we are using currently with some of our products, specifically with our SCADA system right now. And that is to help us quickly, well, we hope quickly, and it does seem to be working, correlate alarms and issues together at the same time. And then it helps. Take those going from the SCADA system, deep down in Colgate, out to the internet, and then to mobile devices in a secure manner. So, yet to be determined overall.
Thank you.
Okay, so as stated, I'm the Information Systems and Security Manager here, and I have the pleasure to lead a great team of very capable people who every day solve good problems within the agency, technology problems. Really quickly, let me go through this org tree here for the department. We have Tyler Bird, who is our network administrator for the agency. And then I'm going to speak a little bit more about what everyone does a little bit further, a couple of slides down. Paula Ruggiero, she's an information security analyst, and we currently have a vacant position for a senior information security analyst currently. So that position is not reflected on this org chart here. Jason Osterholt, he is a system supervisor. He oversees our systems analysts and our help desk technicians to provide the real-time technology operations for the agency. So if something breaks, his team is the one to go and do the fix really quickly. And Monty Schomer, he's an information systems developer, and he actually produces code that's unique to us that solves specific problems for the water agency. As an example, he took what was provided by Maury Miller when he was the operations manager. It's called the Operator's Crystal Ball. It's an application that we use internally every single day and multiple times per day to help operations do their flows and help them manage their operations. He has taken all of that and he has completely refactored it, made it an application specific to us, which I would say gives us a great edge as to how we do our operations. Wesley Morse and Tony Adov, they are help desk technicians here. And typically when people who are not in technology see IT, those are the folks that they see first. They're, so to speak, the face of IT. They're the ones that go out and are the first level response. And then we have Luke Gurney, John Larimer, and Ronald Hans. They're information systems analysts, and they work with servers, storage, and compute devices, a lot of advanced appliances within the agency. And as Curtis mentioned on his org chart, the business analyst that we have, Nicole Vandermeulen, works very closely with us and with his department, and she's the liaison, the go-between between these guys who speak techie and everyone else who doesn't. Okay, so what do? We provide the technological tools and processes to the agency, to the rest of the agency, to perform day-to-day work with a higher efficiency, to have the systems to store and process agency data that we use for real-time or long-term decision-making, both. Operations does a lot of real-time decision-making, and then strategically business and water forecasting and other divisions, they do long-term decision-making. So we provide the systems that store that data in a secure manner and with the integrity so we can trust that data. We support multiple agency networks and communication methods. We work alongside with the Comtechs who are in maintenance. They report to Joel Ferreira, who presented a couple of weeks ago. When we say networks, we're talking all the way down to SCADA, down to the operational level, the controls level, up through guest networks. So everything across the entire depth and breadth. We also provide and implement technical controls to enhance cybersecurity and reduce cyber risk within the agency. We implement technical controls to enhance physical security within the agency. And we have plans to perform disaster recovery and business continuity for all of our systems within the agency. And really what we do ultimately is we support all departments in achieving the agency's strategic objectives. So as mentioned earlier on the org chart, the tree there, we have 5 different areas of support that we provide. Number 1, endpoint support. That's Wesley Morse and Tony Adolph. They're the ones that go out. They work on the hundreds of end user devices that we have within the agency, from laptops to computers to tablets to phones to projectors to printers, all of that. They go out there and the 2 of them are able to manage that themselves. They're really good. Same thing with our systems administration. With systems administration, that's Ron, John, and Luke. They handle, well, we basically have the same number of servers within the agency as we do employees. And so the 3 of them, under Jason's direct guidance, they handle all of those. The operational updates, the maintenance, and helping with implementing the specific security for those. Then we have network administration. That's Tyler Bird, and he works with the Comtex up at Power Systems, and together maintain and optimize uptime for the agency. Our communications with the California ISO up at all times to keep visibility throughout the entire project up at all times. And then we have software development and support. That is Monty, and with the help of Nicole, they really help provide the specific tools that are custom to us here at the agency. And we have information / cybersecurity. Right now we have the currently vacant senior information security analyst position. And then we have Paula, who every day looks at logs, looks at real-time behavior analytics, which is what some of the AI is going to be used for in the near future. And keeps a lot, I would say, the amount of data that we go through is pretty vast. So understanding the tools that we need to provide security 24/7, 365, that's a lot. And we do have, whoops, I pressed the wrong button here. Second. So we do have some consultants that we work with. Sorry, I gave away all your secrets, Jim. They're going to see them. We do have some consultants we work with, but what I try to do is not just the amount of work, but the knowledge and expertise that we have in-house, try to hit that 80% mark. So 80% of problems we can handle here, especially because we have to do after-hours response quite frequently, usually at least once a week. And so it's better to have that knowledge and expertise in-house, better understanding, faster response times, more uptime. Okay, so recent accomplishments that we have done, we've deployed new firewalls throughout the agency. I believe we have 14 firewalls active now throughout the agency. They separate all of our different levels of networks from each other to keep things that should never touch the internet from never touching the internet, keep other things that need to be able to do that. We've refreshed all the business network devices, all the switches, wireless controllers, wireless access points, everything for the business side of the agency. That was done just this last year. We've deployed new business storage and compute clusters, so server racks. We just deployed new ones, so we have a primary system, we have a redundant system, and then we have offsite backups as well in the cloud. We've integrated advanced security agents into every feasible network node, in other words, every node that can actually install and have those. That way we have advanced analytics, and it's not just the old-fashioned malware, anti-malware, signature-based applications. We've implemented new backup technology and updated our backup and recovery procedures within the agency as well. Major projects that we're looking forward to. This is one that's continuing. We've been working on this for a couple of years, and that's upgrading our access control, surveillance, and intrusion system. Previously within the agency, those were separate, disparate systems that did not communicate with each other. Now we have one unified system that's replaced those. So we can actually have cameras move and track any intrusion alerts that are going on and correlate it with access controls. And when doors are forced open, all of that is within one system now. So we're expanding that system, taking it to an even greater level of optimization and expanding it to every site within the agency. And that is critical too, because every site within the agency has agency network connectivity. Once you have agency network connectivity, you really need to start looking at what controls you have in place for physical security as well. Microwave upgrade. We're going to be working with our communications technicians, and we're going to be upgrading the microwave backbone system within the agency. So that's our wireless point-to-point links throughout the agency. And in fact, a lot of our remote sites, that's our single point of communication at this point in time. So we're upgrading to new equipment, better equipment, and going to make sure that that stays up all the time. Phone system replacement is coming this next year. So that's going to be very helpful for the agency. We're also looking at, and we're always looking at this. This is ongoing, continuing network optimization and continuing monitoring, adding in more points, more things that we can monitor. So we have that data there. We can be more proactive. We're going to replace the SCADA network. So we've replaced the business network. Now we're going to look at replacing the SCADA network. And that's going to lead into what Carl Parker, our operations manager, talked about a couple of weeks ago. And that's a full SCADA system replacement or refresh. And then the final thing that we're working on right now, this has been in progress for 14 months, and that is putting in controls to reduce risk for the agency and get us compliant with what is the NIST cybersecurity framework. That's an elective compliance that we decided to go with. And 14 months ago, we started it, and we are now currently sitting at 94% compliant, and we should be compliant within 6 weeks, 100% compliant. And that's it. Any questions?
When you say compliant with who?
The framework. It's a cybersecurity framework put out by the National Institute of Standards and Technology by the federal government. And so when we're compliant with that, there's 43 separate controls that we'll have, 43 separate areas that we're going to have controls for put in place.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Right over my head.
Like the big thick book.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Morning. Teresa D'Alessandro, your Human Resources Manager. My department's not as big as Curtis or David, so this should go a lot quicker. Within the department, we have Molly Bowler. She's our Human Resource Analyst. And then Lakin Shatner. She's our Human Resource Assistant. Both Molly and Lakin work very closely on recruitment from start to finish, and then onboarding as well. Lakin's taking more of a lead role in that recruitment lately so that Molly could do more of the analytical work with compensation, job descriptions, and then project leads as well, which we'll talk about in future slides. A little bit about us. We serve as a strategic partner supporting departments to make Yuba-Water an employer of choice by attracting, sustaining, and inspiring excellence in people with great passion to serve Yuba County. And then we're committed to partnering with departments to provide services and solutions that create a work environment of employee empowerment, continuous improvement, and teamwork. And then some of our human resource department core functions include employment and labor relations. And that could be anything from MOU development, policy development, and negotiations, even personnel matters, disciplinary, non-disciplinary actions. There's compensation structures and benefits, which include recruitment and then creation of job descriptions, training and professional development and performance evaluations, succession planning, and then the fun stuff, employee engagement. That's health and wellness initiatives, Blue Zones Challenge, all staff barbecue, annual recognition. Don't know what else I have on that, so I can't see it, sorry. All the fun initiatives, like performance awards and annual recognition. And then some of our major accomplishments, as you all know, we moved our healthcare from CalPERS to Aqua JPIA this year, and that was for an increased customer service and then increased service offerings at a lower cost. We expanded our health benefits to add life insurance buy-ups and then established health reimbursement accounts for our employees. We introduced about 31 new policies, and we continue to train our employees and our managers on them. We recently kicked off a 2-month leadership academy, which provides training to our directors, our managers, supervisors, and kind of our emerging leaders on leadership and people skills. And then we began implementation on our human resource information system. We went with NeoGov, which is very popular in the local government. Major projects ahead, we continue the HRS modules. We're completing the onboarding right now, and then we're going to move to performance evaluation and e-forms. And then we're taking a look at our salary schedule, perhaps restructuring it just based on what else is out there. And then expand recruitment and retention opportunities. We continue to do that. We added LinkedIn, which has been very helpful. And we're working with our managers to utilize their own personal LinkedIns to get more of our recruitment announcements out. And then lastly, just initiating internal growth and development opportunities for succession planning. Pretty much all human resources.
So I have a question based follow up on what Director Vasquez said earlier about the board engaging with employees. Do we have the next employee barbecue date set yet?
We do. It's this, I believe, the second Thursday in October. I can send that out to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Did you discover a way to make the county qualify for the Oxford JPIA?
I haven't yet, no.
All right, so you can find an intersection or a way to make that happen. And then what is the life insurance buy?
So it allows employees to actually buy additional life insurance for themselves and for their family members.
Okay, so that's different than normal life insurance?
Yes, so we offer just a standard amount to our employees, and then employees can go out and buy it.
HRAs are fantastic from the tax side of it. That's great that you were doing that. That's been around for a little bit. And whatever's left, it rolls over?
Correct.
So it's a good program.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Teresa.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chair and board members. Jim Attrition, clerk of the board, and management analysts. Might be the smallest org chart I've ever seen. This is it's actually super simple because the other name you see up there is pretty much independent, kind of runs her own show. I step in when I need to. So my kudos to Mandy for handling the work. You've noticed she's been in the room the last several months. She's kind of doing backup training. I believe in redundancy. David DeVore would also believe in redundancy. Willie believes in redundancy. So it's just one more layer that this organization really dives head first into succession planning, preparing employees for other roles and future capabilities. So it's a really good asset to have Mandy at my side to help with some of these other tasks. And she can learn a few things herself. And frankly, she teaches me a few things. So that's really just the two of us. But we're not really a department. We kind of just an extension of the administrative unit. So just overall, for the clerk of the board, management analyst roles, I'll be talking about kind of where I fit in that scheme. As you know, board of directors operations, which is, meeting logistics, your agendas to follow up, your training that you're required to take, AB 1825 and AB 1234. You're familiar with both of those, ethics and sexual harassment. You have to monitor those things. And I very loosely just kind of through, agendas and board docs and all the things we have to do. The things that are not written there are Brown Act compliance and questions and challenges that might come up. I handle all of those. The logistics for your meetings, your board meetings are held in this room. We have committees that take place at the F Street building. We handle and make sure that proper noticing is done for meetings that you have off site, if ever that becomes necessary, for special meetings, et cetera. Other things we do on the board side, standardization of your staff reports. I know when I got here in September of 2019, the agency had very brief staff reports in their agenda items, which is okay and it's perfectly acceptable for the Brown Act purposes. My belief and my experience is to make your staff reports our history. So our future selves can go back and look at what went to the board in 2020 on this particular subject matter, and they can get a full understanding of the staff's perspective at that time, any other attachments that might be necessary that support that idea during that period. And it's just a good tool. It's like a library. So, and that's what Board Docs is, your agenda management system, does for us. It's all there. Look anytime you need to. Hopefully we've done a good job and been diligent about completing our staff reports and putting material in there for your edification later. What else? I'll go quickly here. Board policy maintenance and preparation. I was here earlier this year to give you an overview of your board policies, the board level policies. We maintain those, we prepare new ones if we need to, run those through legal, our management team, what have you. And sometimes policies are your direction, so we take that from you and go back and work on some. Everybody loves numbers. Curtis didn't put that many numbers up, so that's cool. I mean, he will later. Whoever's on AVP, you'll hear a lot of numbers. So I just want to give you some updates. So since I have been here in 2019, I thought I could throw some numbers out there. You can see those. I won't read through the whole thing. I'll highlight just one bit. Public Records Act request process 40. It seems like a low number to me, or it might seem like a high number to you. In my previous life as the clerk of the board in El Dorado County, we'd have about 40 a month. So I'll handle this. It's great. Some of them are really, really intensive and they take a lot of time, and it's time that you can't really quantify and say, hey, I spent 37 hours on this particular request, but it's just part of the job and what we have to do. You see the committees, 87 board meetings, regular board meetings since I started. That seems like a lot too, twice a month. It's good. Special board meetings, 24 and so on. All right, moving right along. The management analyst side of my career here, get to dive into some really interesting work, and that is the community impact grant and loan program policy. And I tried to make that an acronym, CIG. LPP is just too much, and I might have mentioned it a little farther down, but it's a lot of words. So for that aspect, I deal with the policy preparation, helped guide that process, maintenance of the policy. Staff is working on some updates to that policy now. It's due for an update, so you'll be seeing that hopefully this summer sometime. I look at all the applications that come in for grants in this program. Make sure they're compliant. Make sure the applicants are eligible, go through and compile all the materials for our project managers who will dig in a little bit farther. Public Records Act, I already talked about coordination there. And then your favorite FEPC statement of economic interest every year. That falls into my lap as well. It's one of those, somebody needs to do it. And I'm happy to do it. I have experience in that area. All right. Accomplishments, to give you kind of a 3-year highlights because I haven't really come to the board with this volume of content before. You can read through those. I'll highlight the publishing the regular meeting agendas on Thursday. I know that just when I was looking into coming to work here, noticed the agendas were usually posted on Fridays or late Friday afternoon, which is actually pretty common for organizations. They get information at the last minute. And I really pushed forward, and the senior management team was very supportive in bringing it to happen on Thursdays, just so the board, the members of the public and staff alike can all get the agendas as early as possible. So you have a little bit more time to read through. Let's see, we obviously hire and cross-train executive assistant, although I didn't cue Mandy up about how well I've trained her. I think her demonstration in the board meetings anyway, I've tried to make it so she's ready to go every single Tuesday at your board meetings and your committee meetings. I think we've been successful there so far. What else? On the management analyst side, let's talk about some key highlights there. The grant program policy is one of them. The at-large redistricting process was new to me. I'd never done that before, so I had to learn a lot about how that process works from a legal perspective, as well as working with the 2 at-large members at the time to figure out the best methods for writing and preparing the materials for that. I assist in administrative operations. That's pretty ambiguous, and that's there on purpose. Pretty much anything that might come across Terry's desk could also land in my desk, just to help facilitate the information, because it's a lot, as you've heard today. Also participate in cross-functional teams across the agency. We have an internal community or cross-functional team policy and a program that helps staff throughout the agency connect with one another. And there's a process for that. And there is a reason for communicating with one another at that level. So we set up cross-functional teams that carry projects forward and aid in that effort. All right, I think that might be, I got one more, future projects. Really just continuing what we do. I serve as a resource for anything that has to do with analysis of a product or service, policies, procedures, that run the gamut from power systems or administration. It can really go anywhere. Supporting of operational efficiency measures. That's just our whole push is to make sure we're working as efficiently as possible. And apparently somebody put that I should be awesome. I'll let you be the judge of that. Call me later though. You don't have to tell me now if I'm not. All right, Terry, does this come back to you or does it go right to? Any questions before I turn it over to Alex?
Just out of curiosity, what are all the public records requests? Is there a common theme to those, or just?
They should be going down a lot. Is that a drop off?
Is that a question? Drop off. I will share this. So to answer both, the volume is ebb and flow. It always has been. I've been doing public records apps for a better part of a couple of decades, and they can be all of a sudden you got 12 on your plate and you have to go figure out how to make them work. There is no common theme in particular. It really can be anything, Director Bishop. It's an interesting part of the state government code that allows the public to seek information from their elected bodies and their governing, their governance systems, which I support wholeheartedly, 100%. They should have access to it. And it's part of my job as the clerk to make sure your information from the board's perspective is there and available. I will say that in my time, the majority of Public Records Act requests are not about board meetings or board agendas or board topics. They're usually about, I want emails from your GM for the last 25 years. Okay, we're not going to do that. So there's provisions where we can kind of guide that. So it's an interesting world, and everyone is a new adventure. All right.
Is there, because we have board docs and things like that, does that make less requests for public information? Because the more we put out there, the more they know, and they could answer their own questions. Or am I reading that wrong?
I think that's accurate, Director Matthews. I don't know if we should take credit for that. I think that's just our job to put information out there. But that can also be extended to anything we communicate, really. Any information we put out there when we have our budget materials, our strategic plan. These are all information documents that people can start to draw their own conclusions on where they might need to find information. And there are some folks out there in the world who submit a Public Records Act request that is pinpointed on something that just isn't out there. It's information we didn't think we needed to have out there, and they're just doing research, and we compile that information for them and give it to them. But it's a good observation. I would agree 100%.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Good morning, Alex Bosch, Public Information Specialist on the Communications team here at Yuba-Sutter. So Strategic Priority 5, Objective 6, continue to engage in a robust communications function to educate constituents and make information readily available and easily accessible. So that's more or less where our team comes in. So our large team is made up of Communications Manager Dee Cordell, Senior Public Information Officer Bonnie, and myself. And while we're all kind of at different levels, we all kind of take on a lot of the same responsibilities and really work together for the best of the communications team in the agency. So we take a very proactive, results-oriented approach to our communications efforts and program in general. And by doing this, we think this really helps the agency remain transparent, but also to really help get our message out there. Some of our main areas of communication include internal communications, which we think is probably the most important. We make an effort to make sure that our workforce is knowledgeable and knows what's going on throughout the agency, different projects, programs. So we take that very seriously. And while the communications team kind of helps facilitate internal communications in general, we do think that it's a very important job for everyone within the agency to be a good communicator and to talk with one another. Some of the tools that we use to accomplish our internal communications is the pipeline, which is our intranet, so pretty much our own internal website where we post everything from news, videos, department information, and much more. In addition to that, we have a monthly internal newsletter that goes out on the first Thursday of every month, where we can give project updates, highlight different employees, relay information about the board actions, and things like that. We've also recently started internal staff tours around the project, whether that's, the water treatment plant up at Bullard's Bar, or just the different facilities for, newer employees or employees who maybe haven't gotten out there before, to really learn and to gain a better understanding of how the project works. And then also we have an internal communications committee. And this committee is made up of employees throughout the agency. And they really just they meet to guide our internal communications function. Next is our external communications. So we've developed a strategic communications plan that we refresh every year. Then it has essentially monthly themes that we base our communication, our monthly communications about, in addition to, actions that you all take. But to help us accomplish that, we maintain our external facing website. So our team is solely responsible for that, making sure that the information's up to date, posting recent press releases, stories, videos, everything. We also do a quarterly newsletter. So this is a public newsletter that we send out via email. And we have, I think, over 150 or so people who are subscribed to that. And so we really, that's quarterly. And that's just another way that we push out all the information that we're posting on our website, sharing on social media. And then social media, we're very active on a variety of platforms on social media, everything from LinkedIn to Twitter, Facebook, Nextdoor now, as well as, Vimeo, which is a video hosting website, and YouTube. So we're covering a lot of different social media platforms. We also write feature stories as well as press releases. These are about board actions, but then also prevalent topics that relate to our monthly strategic communications plan topics. We use photos and videos in pretty much everything we do, whether that's in our newsletters, that's our website, social media, just to give it a visual so people can see what's going on versus just reading about it. And then lastly, another thing I want to highlight was our Faces of Yuba-Water series. This is a series that we post and share that really features the employees here at Yuba-Water and the work that they do, and to put a face behind the agency. So I think we're at about 50 employees so far, 40 to 50 employees that we featured, and we do one a month. Moving on to media relations. So the goal here is to really establish and maintain effective relationships with the media. We do this through press releases. We pitch story ideas, and then as well as we respond to any queries that they have in a very timely manner. So we take those very seriously. If someone from the media reaches out, we drop everything and make sure that we're focused on that and getting them the information that they're requesting. Moving on to community relations. So we're very active in the community, and we participate in a lot of events and booth or staff a lot of these events. And those can range from everything from the Peach Festival and the Buckeye Parade, and we're walking in the Buckeye Parade, to smaller events. So recently we just participated in the Yuba County Library's Earth Day event, which was 2 weeks ago. So we're really just out there trying to educate people about who we are and what we do. We also give a lot of service club presentations, so to local rotaries, things like that. And then we're also going into the classroom of local schools and really trying to educate the local students about agency in general, but then also, everything from fish habitat enhancement or forest health, things like that. Stakeholder engagement is really important to us. So we'll provide tours of our project or facilities to some of our stakeholders and groups. And then our team, we participate in a lot of committees. We participate in the communications committee for the North Yuba Forest Partnership. We're also involved on the steering committee of the Forecast Informed Reservoir Operations, as well as the Aqua Communications Committee. Crisis planning. So we recently developed a crisis communications plan, which really will help guide us in our actions and efforts if and when we experience that next crisis. So we worked really hard on that. We've also been, over the last year, attending numerous trainings, everything from trainings hosted by Cal OES, their emergency communications academy. And then we also helped coordinate, in January, we helped coordinate a crisis simulation where, you know, it was acting like a real crisis. But we had representatives from Yuba County there, Yuba County Office of Education, as well as the Army Corps. So we all participated in there, and that's, you know, helping us build the relationships, but also getting that training and kind of almost real world experience. And then lastly, in addition to all this and all the information that we're putting out, we also use different marketing techniques to further get our name out there and the things that we're doing. So we have print ads monthly in both the Appeal Democrat and the Prospect. We have monthly radio spots. And then we recently started doing kind of 30-second short videos based on kind of our monthly theme that will play during on streaming services. So those you can't skip them, and it's specific to Yuba County, but you know, everyone using a streaming service or a lot of the streaming services will see one of our short videos pop up, which is pretty cool. A little bit different way of reaching folks. And then every month to kind of see how we're doing and gauge how we're, you know, the effectiveness of our communications and getting the word out about all the great things that we're doing about us in general. We look at a monthly analysis, and that, you know, we're looking at analytics, everything from social media to website analytics, and then we're kind of comparing them to, say, the previous month or even the year or the previous year on website stats and things like that, so that we can kind of see what's working, whether, you know, a short video is working better than a photo or vice versa. And then we can kind of adjust accordingly and to really try to utilize our efforts. Some of our recent accomplishments, I already kind of touched on the crisis communications planning, but then we're coming up on the year since the debut of the Tricky Yuba, which has a little bit over 2,500 views, which is pretty impressive for a video of that length. So we're pretty proud of that. Just talked about the streaming service video ads. Within the last year, we also redesigned and refreshed our website. So this was pretty much to bring our website up to speed and to make it current, but also make sure all the information there is the correct information. We went through, you know, with different representatives throughout the agency to make sure that all the information there is what it should be. It's up to date, as well as to kind of make it a little bit more easier to find information, both for just from a user standpoint, but then also just a visual standpoint. We recently launched a partner video series, and the first two videos were featuring the Marysville Levy Commission and RD 784. We're also working with some of the member units to start creating some videos about them, just to really highlight our partners and the work they do. We also recently launched our Beneath the Surface, which is an employee video feature series. So kind of really to dive even further into the work that our employees do. It's almost like, I want to say it's kind of like a day in the life. So we kind of follow them around, you know, whether it's a project or an inspection or something like this, just so that people can get a glimpse as to what they do. So actually, I forgot to mention that Dee Dee and Bonnie are actually at a conference, the California Association of Public Information Officials annual conference this week. That's why I'm up here. But they're there to kind of, you know, sharpen their communication skills, learn about the latest trends, things like that. But they're also there to accept 2 awards for us. One for the Tricky Yuba, as well as one for our 25 years since the New Year's flood of '97 campaign, which was kind of a campaign that we used our website, feature stories, social media that we kind of did last January. So we packaged that together and submitted for this award. And also, we're actually a finalist for the Public Relations Society of America Silver Anvil Award, which I have to say is probably one of the most coveted public relations awards in the nation, which is very cool. PRSA has local chapters, but this award is on kind of the national level. So we're a finalist, which is a huge accomplishment in itself, but hopefully we'll bring home the award here in June. So looking forward, some of the projects ahead, we're actually wrapping up a coffee table book about we pretty much took the Tricky Yuba and are making it into a coffee table book. So really visual. It looks a lot like the video if you were to just put it into a hard copy. But that's kind of in the final stages of review. So that should be here in the coming weeks or months. We'll be going through a brand awareness survey. So when we rebranded a few years ago, we initially started with a brand survey to see if the people or how many people knew of us, what they knew about us, things like that. So now that we're, a few years down the line with our new brand, we're going to revisit that to see how much things have changed, how we're doing, and to really see, the impact that we're having in the community. We're developing recreation collateral for community events. So we have a couple more recreation-based events coming up in the next month or two. So we've been working on creating this really big banner. I don't know if at our current booth, we have this kind of stand-up banner that highlights our facilities and things like that. But we didn't have anything that was really specific to recreation for when we're out in the community. So we're wrapping up another large banner that highlights all the recreation opportunities around Bullards. Everything from all the local mountain bike and hiking trails to, boat launches, marina, things like that. So we're pretty excited about that. We're also making more of an effort to translate our collateral into Spanish so that we can impact more of the community and get that out there and hit that demographic. We're increasing our engagement with Beale Air Force Base. So we have 4 sponsored events that are coming up this year. And then lastly, we're also looking into virtual reality videos. So we're taking virtual reality in so people can kind of see these different projects in kind of a first person perspective. So we're just kind of scratching the surface and starting to look into those.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, as you're updating, we get the list where we're mentioned in, say, the Sacramento Bee or the Chronicle. You've been very good. I phoned Dee Dee, and she'll send me the article. Is there a way that people could just click on the article and it would come up? Because when you say we're mentioned in the Chronicle, some of us might want to know how they're mentioning. So we would like to read the article.
So unfortunately, with the service that we use that tracks all those, a lot of these different outlets are behind a paywall. So they require you to pay for the subscription. So if you click it, you might be able to visit it. But if you've already read 3 articles from them in the past month, you might not be able to. So there's no real way to get beyond those paywalls as of right now. But please don't hesitate to reach out anytime that you would like to see an article. We've got subscriptions to these, so we're happy to provide you the article or story.
Yeah, it would just be helpful that other people, won't phone the agency to read the article. If when it comes up, they can click on it and find a way to have your IT people get the article to come up. It's just an idea. Thank you.
How about Comstocks? Were they going to do a piece, or did they do a piece?
Comstocks did a piece a couple months ago, kind of about our forest health efforts. Heavily featured Joanna Lessard, who's our watershed manager. So it was a great article with some really great imagery. Okay. Happy to forward that on if you'd like. I know that we're working with another Comstocks reporter, kind of about
We got Comstocks here at the so take a look at it. It was about a couple months ago.
Yeah, I want to say 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay.
Well, thanks.
I want to ask before you leave, is these internal communications, I don't know if there's an email list or something. I'm not sure I'm on that. I would like to be if there is one.
Yeah, Director Bishop, those are internal for staff,
Okay.
So not internal for board members.
Is there
something? We have a little special club called staff.
You mean we sign the checks, but we
That's
are
right.
allowed to see
That's right. We got to keep something secret from you so they feel special.
Anything else?
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Carrie, I've got a question. Where are all these people? I mean, can you
We hide them, and that's why we have to communicate internally.
Who's on D Street and who's on
Okay.
L Street?
So all the finance folks, all the IS folks, are over in D Street, the procurement. So everybody that's in the finance department is over on D Street. So that's really not a public building. It's secure, so we don't really want visitors over there. Everybody else is in F Street. Yes, everybody else is in F Street. I'm sorry? It would be a really fun field trip. You're welcome to go. I mean, they'll answer the door and let you in, but I'd be happy to take you over. Well, the majority of people in admin. Actually, we have Vanjie goes up. She regularly goes to the powerhouse, and we're up there all the time, especially finance and procurement. At least once a week, we've got folks going up there.
With respect to total employees, though, is it about half and half up at the plant and half down in Marysville?
Yeah, it's about right. It's about. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
I had one question.
Sorry, John, go ahead.
Just a question after that. So when we build the new building in Oregon House, who will be up there?
All of the people who are currently up in Colgate.
Yeah.
We're not planning on moving any major effort here up to the plant.
Okay.
It's just better facilities and ADA accessible facilities and.
So what's in Marysville will remain in Marysville.
Yes. Great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Willie.
Yes, okay. Well, first off, I want to thank the staff that put that presentation together. I have to be very candid, and this is no dig on staff, but when I heard, I was in DC last week, and so I didn't even know it was on today's agenda until this morning because I didn't have any topics other than manager's report. And Terry said, oh, it's the admin update to the board, and said what admin. I was like, oh, well, this will be fun. But actually, I learned more about our admin staff and what they do today than I do just working with them, because I just assume all the stuff gets done, right? It just gets done. And it's just great to see, and it was well presented, and they're the glue that keeps us together. Terry called it the foundation, but they're the glue that keeps this thing running. So thanks everybody for putting that together. And David, I have no idea what you work on, but thanks for doing it. Okay, so here's the reality of the way our operations work, hydrology wise, and where we're at in the year. I think I've reported in the past, we get all our precipitation December through March generally, and we generally know on April 1st what our reservoir storage is going to be, and we can pretty much tell you down to the acre foot how much volume is going to be in New Bullard's Bar from then until basically the end of September. So this year's a little different because there's such a huge snowpack. It's like around the second best year ever with 82, 83, kind of a little bit better than this, but definitely an ample snowpack. So that kind of extends the inventory of water out into, May, June, July. We think we're going to spill New Bullard's Bar. There's a 10% chance we don't, but it'll very likely spill. It'll very likely spill in the middle of this month, and it'll last for a month or a little bit longer. And what determines the spill is basically the weather pattern. So last week we saw a heat event late last week and over the weekend. And if that would have sustained, we would have saw some major inflows, and we would have encroached into the flood pool. And you'll remember the flood pool is the flood reservation that's basically owned by the Army Corps of Engineers. During the middle of the winter, it's 170,000 acre feet, but starting April 1st, it goes up incrementally every day until June 1st. So it's the amount of water we're allowed to store in New Bullard's Bar is slowly increasing every day. And basically what we're doing is, based on the weather and the inflows, we're managing the pool kind of right along with that increase. We're just under it. And we have some flexibility to go into the pool. The Army Corps will let us do that as long as we have a plan and we tell them how long we're going to be in the pool and how long we'll be out. So what really dictates, the rest of this runoff season is the weather. And this cool period we're going to see this year, probably for the next 7 to 10 days or maybe longer, we may not see a lot of precipitation. We're going to see maybe an inch or 2 or 3 in the mountains. And that's not really the impact. It's just the cool weather. The cool weather will slow down that snow melt, which is fine because we know the volume of snow. And you'll see in your report, there's really good information now with our aerial snow observations and our manual readings. We know fairly confidently how much volume of water is in the snow. So it's just the question is, when is that going to come in? And if it comes in a very peaky manner, like we get a heat wave for 10 days, it may come off really quick. That would increase the spill. If it stays like it is now and it's kind of a couple days of warm with 7 to 10 days of mild to cool, that's the 10% chance that we don't spill Bullards because it's nice and delayed and slow and steady. For us, it really doesn't matter. Basically, the same amount of water is going to be in New Bullards Bar for both generation and irrigation deliveries. But for the southern part of the state or the southern Sierras, that phenomenon or the weather over the next couple months is really going to determine if there is a true flood risk threat in San Joaquin Valley or not. And so they're very hopeful for a nice steady melt. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring that up, like compare and contrast us and how our situation is compared to theirs. The reason I say that is there's a bunch of new slides that in your report that I'm not going to go over other than the general overview I just went over that talks about the Southern Sierra snowpack versus our snowpack. And I just wanted to talk about that phenomenon. And what this also allows us to do is this is the time of year that we're kind of in planning and preparation for the season. So the generators are going, full bore, and they have been since about, March or so, and they will continue to go full bore. I mean, full output up until probably early July. And that's why we don't plan outages in this time of year. In a drought year, if this would have been a drought year, yeah, we could have planned an outage and taken an outage, but we don't because we could have a year like this. You got the water's for free, it's excess water, you're going to be full load, so you want your generators online and operational. That's why we don't plan outages right now. But what do we do when we're not in an outage or not doing major construction work? We plan that work. So I wanted to point out that, and Curtis mentioned this in his presentation, that Curtis and I participated in the first hour of a couple hour meeting that the power system staff have right now because it's planning season and budget season, where they're going over all of their projects for the next several years, prioritizing them and making sure they're accurate and making sure things like what Director Matthews brought up is solid and the justifications and the priorities are solid in that we know what we want to build or repair. We know what the budget is. We know what the engineering is. We know we can procure the stuff, and then we're doing it efficiently and financially efficiently, as well as like manpower efficiency and making sure we have the outages. So they're doing that. That process has really. I mean, it was good when I was at PG&E and I was helping manage this stuff. It was a good process, but now I think they've got it down really well with their project justifications, and you'll see all that. In June when you approve the budget going into the next fiscal year. Yes, Director Matthews.
Yeah, I think what you said might have gone over our heads. If we don't spill, that means we're making the income on every acre foot going through the generator. If we spill, that's income that we've lost.
That's a valid point. So I'll expand on that because I didn't focus on it. If we have a nice, slow, steady runoff scenario and we don't spill, that means we got to utilize all of that snow that's sitting on the mountains right now. We got to utilize it through the generators. If we do have a heat event where we get a really peaky or a peak in the runoff scenario and the Army Corps basically says, hey, you're too far in the flood pool, you need to get out of the flood pool, that's when we'll have to spill. It's very likely we'll have to spill just because of the amount of snowpack. But there is, like I said, a small chance that we won't have to spill. However, and Director Matthews is absolutely accurate. However, there is a lot of water that's going to be what we call freighted through the system. That's just run full load for months at a time. And so we will be running full load probably until early July. That means we're making as much use out of every acre foot of water that's going through the system as possible. And the key to that is, mentioned earlier, making sure your units are available. That's why we don't take outages or don't plan major work now, because this scenario may happen.
And the other point, in a rough sense, each acre foot of water equals a megawatt. So when we sell something for $60 or minus 30 cents, that's what each acre foot of water is to us, is income. Is that reasonable?
It's really reasonable, Director Matthews, and I'd love it when you challenge me and you show me how much you know, and we appreciate that. But I also like it when I get to correct you a little bit. It's actually 1.3 megawatts per acre foot, but there you go.
The other point that I'd like to make on your presentation is if you look at page 3, you'll see the water this year, which is extraordinary. And in the north, the dams are bigger than the water. And that's primarily because our floods are called the Hawaiian Express. It's a warm storm that comes in, and in a 3-day period, we might get 40 inches of rain on our spots. But when you go to the next page, you'll see the San Joaquin, and you'll notice the water in relation to the size of the dams. The dams are very small, but again, they don't have a warm storm flood scenario. What they have is what you just talked about, was that they depend on a flood because the snow melt makes their flood. So when we talk about the emergency spillway, you'll notice on the page 3 that the bar at Folsom looks like the south, but the Folsom Dam is in the north, so it worries about a warm storm. So that's why they built the emergency spillway, so they could make more use of their limited facilities. And when you look at Bullard's Bar, we don't have that same look that Folsom has. So even though we're in the emergency spillway business, it's apparent that Folsom is different from Bullard's. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and I'll expand on that in that our reservoir bar chart may look different, or will likely look different after we update the water control manual, which we're currently working on with the Army Corps of Engineers to give us more flexibility. And as you know, we talked about incorporating forecast-informed reservoir operations and incorporating just all the information we've learned over the past 50 years of operating, that we update that manual so that we're more flexible. And maybe we could be, not that we need to in a year like this because there's so much water available, but we could be more flexible in moderate years, in any year that we could take advantage of flexibility. So to expand on Charlie's point, our bar could look different once that manual is updated.
And the primary difference would be that at Oroville, they use the rain events for that year. If it's a dry year or a wet year, they're able to encroach more or encroach less. We are on a fixed thing, so a dry year or wet year, we're fixed at the flood reservation minimums.
That's absolutely correct. Oroville has their flood diagram, has a staged flood diagram based on a wetness factor, is what it's termed in their water control manual. And although our water control manual is about the same vintage as theirs, it's more simple. It has the same line every year. However, like I mentioned, we're going to update our water control manual. It may not have a staged flood curve, but it will have operational parameters that allow us more flexibility. And just so everyone's aware, based on our operational relationship with the Army Corps of Engineers and others, primarily Department of Water Resources, and forecast coordinated operations that we implemented in approximately 2005 following the 1997 flood, we basically have a flexible system, but it's a flexible system that's not defined in the water control manual. It's a flexible system as we communicate with the Army Corps of Engineers based on forecasts, based on our operational capability, and based on decisions that are made on a daily basis during these periods of time. Right now, we're meeting with the Corps weekly, but if we were in more of a real-time flood scenario, it would be daily or even more frequent than that. So although our curve is fixed, it is flexible in reality because of the relationship, the communication.
And part of the flexibility, because we have better forecasts now than we did 40 or 50 years ago.
We did, and we do, and the confidence and the operability of those forecasts, or basically the comfort level that the other agencies, in particular Department of Water Resources and the Army Corps of Engineers, have in those forecasts is getting better every day. Even the past couple of years, when you add the aerial snow observations and you add our forecast-informed reservoir observations that we're working on with scripts, where they're out flying out over the storms and dropping their dropsons and gaining real-time data that informs those forecasts, we're all getting more comfortable with the validity of those forecasts so that we can operate to them. And so that takes time. And so that is improving every day and every year. And we've been involved in that scripts work for several years, but remember, there was a couple years there where there weren't really any atmospheric rivers or storms to speak of to go study. So we really were delayed in gaining knowledge. This year, I think in your report here today is something like 31 atmospheric rivers this year. So I don't know if they captured all those, they probably not, but several of the major ones they were able to capture data from and utilize it in real time. So here's the reality. You guys need to either have me pass out my report after I give it, or we have Charlie attend on Zoom.
I will take that as a
this is great, Director Matthews. I love chatting with you about it.
It goes back to our original thing. In order to maximize generation, we need to minimize spill.
Yes.
And all of these things are to minimize spill.
That's right. And we'll do the best we can, but we will spill as necessary in a safe way. No, this is great.
They have answered this. Do you have any concern at all that in a year like this, where there's so much snow up there late season, do you have any concern that the Army Corps' flood pool is not large enough on a given date in May or something?
No. It would take a storm that has never been seen before to even cause us to do something abnormal with a spill. And even in that event, we would see it in a forecast. For example, Sunday night, I checked one of the weather services that I look at. Don't tell John James that I look at one that's not from him. But and this storm this week could have been fairly significant. The nice thing is that it was cold, so it would be snow, and it wouldn't be. I was looking for what is the rain on snow possibility, and what is the possibility of encroaching big time into the flood pool and having to initiate spill this week. The reality is if we had some type of warm rain with this type of snowpack this time of year, we do have, even currently without the ARC spillway, we do have the ability to implement FURO, basically to implement that pre-release operation without it being in the water control manual. We have the knowledge, the experience, and the physical capability to implement a release right now because we're well up on the spillway. We're nearly full or we're filling. So if we saw a scenario like that, we could discharge significant volumes. I mean, our max volume ever is 1997, 55,000 CFS. We wouldn't want to approach that, but 20,000 CFS a day is 40,000 acre feet. You do that for 5 days, there's 200,000 acre feet. That's a pretty good evacuation in preparation for something. So in a detailed answer to your very simple question, there isn't a concern. Okay, so I'm just going to jump to the back page because this is more detailed than I wanted it to be, but it's great discussion. So I mentioned last week I was in Washington, D.C. Adam, John, and I went back there to touch base with our legislators and regulatory agencies. This is the first trip to D.C. that we've taken since pre-pandemic or January of 2020. It was great to get back there and just touch base with different folks. We met with staff from the Feinstein, LaMalfa, and Kiley's offices. We also met with the Army Corps of Engineers, 2 different departments there, and then had a really good meeting with FERC. I think the most value we gained was the meeting with FERC. A lot has transpired with our relicensing efforts and our ARC spillway planning and our preparation of the Narrows 1 relicensing. So just touching base with that staff, I think there's about 10 FERC staff members in our meeting. 4 of them were in person, 6 of them were on a Teams meeting. But they let us know that this is the first in-person meeting they've had since the pandemic. So I was really happy to be the first and just prove that our engagement is at the right level and we're kind of jumping in at the right time. At any rate, that was probably the most productive meeting. The other ones were just like, hey, remember us. We do a lot of good stuff. When we need you, we'll call you. We didn't have any specific asks, but it was a reminder of all the different work we're doing, like planning the ARC spillway. We're in relicensing. We've helped our partners gain a bunch of funding for forest restoration, just those types of good messages and just reminding people who we are and what we do. And staff, back there changes with every election cycle, but also changes with, the agency staff changes with retirement. So that FERC, for example, looks much different than it did in January of 2020.
I would like to also say that it is money very well spent because when board of directors go back, it's like farmers. When farmers go back and meet with the staff, it's a lot better than a lobbyist meeting with the staff. So not only is it good for the board to understand how it works, but the board is much more effective than a lobbying meeting with staff.
Thanks, Director Matthews. Okay, in the communications world, the Appeal Democrat covered our partnership with the county on the effort to get the grant for all of her sidewalks and drainage, as well as the Healthy Forest grant we received from CAL FIRE for continued work in the foothills. I believe that was another $6.9 million from CAL FIRE in our Healthy Forest grant. And this is separate from the North Yuba Forest partnership that's getting like 100 and something million. This is directly to Yuba Water Agency for work in our lower, mountain elevations like Dobbins, Oregon House, Challenge, that area. So it's to continue that effort, which is great. On Earth Day, the appeal ran a guest column from me about some of the ways we are investing in protecting and enhancing the environment and in our watershed. And under community relations, great accomplishments on the community impact and engagement front through our efforts to bring resources together in the county. Recent accomplishments include the establishment of a middle college academy that will allow high school students dual enrollment course at Yuba College and their respective high school, hosting Beale Air Force Base Industry Days that attracted more than 100 local business representatives. And we've been invited to join Beale, their quarterly award ceremony planning team. And Yuba Water and Yuba County will be part of a Beale initiative to shape the strategic vision and associated objectives for the next few years. And one area Jackie is working on with Chief Oliver at Beale is to focus on how Beale Air Force Base can achieve community engagement. So I think we mentioned that in the previous presentation, but Beale is a major employer and a major entity in the county, and we've had a focus on improving that relationship. I'm the honorary commander to the commander, Colonel Church, and he's very proactive and very engaging. And I think we can develop that foundational relationship with Colonel Church, and that can be perpetuated into future commanders. And I think that's kind of one of the struggles we have with that relationship at Beale is the commanders turn over every 2 years, and unless there's some continuity, the efforts kind of stumble in every transition. So I think we're going to have a situation where whatever we plan and whatever relationship we develop is passed on to the next commander. At least that's what the Colonel and I have discussed. We hosted a tour for some of our partners in the FERO Steering Committee on April 20th and staffed a booth for Earth Day at Yuba County Library on Saturday the 22nd. And upcoming events we've sponsored include the Fairway to Health Adventist Rideout Golf Tournament on May 5th, Local Goods for Local Good, Lead Yuba-Sutter Dinner on May 5th, and the Dinner in the Orchard, a Seroptimus event on May 6th. May 9th through 11th, we're sponsoring, and a few of us are attending, the Aqua Spring Conference. And we're also hosting a table at the annual Greater Sacramento Economic Council Dinner on May 11th. And May 16th, we're planning an event for the MOU signing with Citrus. We will have a booth at Beale Air Force Base on May 19th, which is the Beale Bash. And lastly, we're planning a community meeting at the Alcoff Center on May 22nd to share some of the updates about some of our projects in the foothills and things that they'll be interested in. And lastly, last week, Dee Dee and Joanna accepted the Partner of the Year Award on our behalf from South Yuba River Citizens League. And I can't overstate what an amazing award this is. We have a partner that's an NGO that you would think we would struggle operating with, but then they turn around and give us the Partner of the Year Award. It's an honor, and I wasn't able to be there, but I know Dee Dee and Joanna represented us well. I'm going to play a video. But before I play a video, because I think we all understand the video is kind of the end of my manager's report, I have to introduce someone. That is, and this isn't related to this is separate, but Clessie Bennett is a water leader and currently in the water leader program. Clessie, there you go. There's Clessie. As you all know, I was in the water leaders program in 2018, and this year I was asked to be a mentor to to an existing water leader. And so I met Clessie 5 minutes before this meeting. We jumped in the car and came here. And so Clessie, from what I understand, in that 5-minute drive from the agency office to here, she works in the California Natural Resources Department. So she works for the state in their climate resiliency department, and she works on forest restoration and habitat enhancement projects. And I know that's a super simplification of what she does, but I'm sure I'll learn more about Clessie today, and I hope that she gains something from me and us. And I've offered for her, for the rest of her career, what it's worth, I'm available for her, anything water or energy related or forest restoration related. So that's Clessie. Thank you, Clessie. Okay, Manny, please play the video.
Year Award is given to an agency, company, or other entity that we work with that shares our vision for the Yuba, a group that we work together with throughout the watershed. Now, it might seem a little strange to some of you that an environmental nonprofit is awarding the Partner of the Year award to a water agency from Yuba County. But long-lasting, meaningful, positive change requires cooperation. It requires coming together to address our shared challenges and protect shared resources. It requires a strong, trusting, honest relationship built on mutual respect. And when it comes to Circle and Yuba Water Agency's relationships over the past few years, it is hard to imagine a more diligently earned and hard-fought partnership than ours. Throughout the watershed, Yuba Water Agency has been and continues to be a valuable partner. We work together on important forest health initiatives like the North Yuba Forest Partnership. We are working together on large-scale restoration work in the Lower Yuba River and collaboratively planning a vision for bigger things in the future. As an agency and people, they also see the importance of education and are helping grow our salmon expeditions so we can even reach more students, inspiring the next generation of watershed stewards. So for all of the ways that we work together to protect and restore the Yuba watershed, I would like to welcome Joanna and Dee Dee to the stage to accept the award as Partner of the Year.
So lastly, our next board meeting is May 16th, and we'll also have special board of directors meeting on the 30th.
Awesome.
Any questions?
Thank you, Willie. Any additional questions? Okay, we'll move to board member reports. Director Vasquez? Nothing. Director Blazer?
Friday was the Chamber's breakfast connection, or the business connection breakfast. And Kevin Mallon did a nice state of the county update, but he did give a good shout out to Yuba Water and everything that we do for them. So that was nice. Also, tomorrow there is an Ellis Lake meeting. I have not seen the agenda, but I have high hopes. So we'll see how that goes.
Director Fuhr?
I attended Cap to Cap for the water agency, went back. We spoke with one of the committee staffers and with Kylie's office to help make sure that we bring to the forefront the importance of the voluntary agreements and keep that moving forward.
Thank you. Dr. Messick?
So I also attended that with Dawn, and just about everybody was there except Andy. And then later that day, I attended for the water agency the spring swing for kids golf tournament. My son and I played on the Yuba Water Agency team along with my sister and Tom, who's an electrical engineer for the water agency. Got a great day, got to know Tom, great guy. And I attended yesterday the Business Energy Technology Forum, I guess, in Roseville. Very interesting, all this stuff they're doing with mastication and clearing the forest, making biomass and coming up with different technologies for fuel and things like that. Very interesting. Let's see. I attended Pioneer Days in Smartsville Saturday and won the grand prize of the chainsaw.
Oh, very nice.
I'm on a lucky roll right now. And I want to let everybody know on May 18th, the county is hosting a Be Prepared Fair in Brownsville at the community center. I will have a table set up there to hand out information on behalf of the county. And if the agency wants me to hand out anything there, be happy to do that.
Great. That was the 18th or 19th?
18th.
Yeah.
It's a Thursday, the 18th.
Thank you, Director Messick. Director Matthews?
I'd like to again compliment the people in North Yuba County. They are are rowing the boat in the same direction. They've got water going to their agriculture this year, and their board and community are working together. And my compliment is, when you work together, you can accomplish amazing things, and they are accomplishing amazing things.
Great, thank you. Director Bishop? Okay, I've got a couple items. Yesterday morning, I joined Director Matthews up at North Yuba Water District to watch them open up the flow of water from Dry Creek Diversion down the Oregon House Canal to provide irrigation water to the Oregon House community. So that was really exciting. I attended Cap to Cap as well with Director Fuhr. I served on the flood protection team, and when we met with congressional representatives, we focused on local projects. We focused on were the ARC spillway and also the Marysville Ring Levee project. I also had a great meeting with FEMA where we talked about flood insurance rates in South Yuba County. Didn't quite get across the finish line on a resolution to that yet, but always good to have dialogue to express our concern with the current methodology and hopefully maybe get that changed and or get any issues that exist with that changed. So tomorrow's a NACWA board meeting that I'll be attending, and I will be at Aqua next week. I met with Director Bishop a couple weeks ago, and he suggested that we put together an ad hoc committee to look at water education, particularly next steps with respect to facilities and programming. And so I'd like to form an ad hoc committee. I'd like to have Director Bishop on that committee, myself, as well as Director Messick. And then let's see what else. Just want to say thank you to staff for the amazing presentation today and everything that you do. I think, sometimes maybe the administration side of the agency isn't as sexy as some of the other things that are going on, but I think Terry really did a good job summing it up when she said that they're the heart or the foundation of the agency, right? Without the administrative services and finance areas of the agency, nothing else could function, right? And so anyway, I appreciate everything that goes on behind the scenes. And so with that, we will adjourn the meeting. I know we have a 10 o'clock, now 11, a little after 11 o'clock, ABP meeting. And then probably I'm thinking the earliest, there's a pod meeting after that. Probably the earliest would be 11:30. Does that sound appropriate? Okay, so if you're on ABP, head over to the agency as soon as you can. If you're on pod, be there by 11:30. So thank you.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.